I must tell you, I've found someone else, someone better. I won't be at our wedding next month. I wish you the best. That was the entire email from Ethan sent at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. It arrived precisely 32 days before we were to be married. I stared at my phone screen, the coffee beside my laptop getting cold as my world began to fall apart. 3 years together, 8 months engaged, and hundreds of I love yous were all discarded in just 4 sentences. My name is Alyssa Reynolds, and I'm a 30-year-old interior designer in Boston. Up until that moment, I believed I was living a perfect life, a successful career, a beautiful apartment, and a fiancé I thought was my soulmate. Ethan and I had met at a charity gala where his investment firm was a key sponsor. He captivated me with his charm, wits, and what I mistook for genuine kindness. Looking back, the warning signs were there all along. The lavish gifts he couldn't afford, the late-night work meetings that left a foreign perfume scent on his shirt collar, and his defensiveness whenever I questioned unusual charges on our joint accounts. But love has a way of making you blind to the obvious, doesn't it? Even when the red flags are right in front of you. I immediately forwarded Ethan's email to my best friend, Rachel, with the message, "Have you seen this?" Her response was instantaneous. "I'm coming over. Don't do anything yet." Rachel arrived to find me still at my kitchen island, now surrounded by wedding invitation samples that had just been delivered. The irony was devastating. "Join us in celebrating our love" was printed in elegant gold foil, while my phone displayed the ending of our relationship. Rachel's voice shook with anger. "What kind of coward breaks up with someone over email after everything you've done for him?" She was right. I had stood by Ethan through his financial troubles, helped him expand his professional network, and even agreed to delay buying our own place so he could invest more in his business ventures. A secret plan, but there was. A crucial detail Ethan didn't know: I wasn't as naive as he thought. Over the past 3 months, I had been quietly keeping a record of his suspicious behavior. The engagement ring he had claimed was a family heirloom. I had already learned it was a recent purchase from a luxury resale shop. I sold it 2 weeks prior after finding a lipstick stain on his shirt he couldn't explain. The money from the ring sat in a separate account, waiting for a purpose I hadn't yet defined until now. The initial shock was fading, replaced by a new, sharper resolve. Ethan believed he could simply email his way out of our life together. He was about to learn a valuable lesson about underestimating the wrong woman. The weeks leading up to his email had been full of things I could no longer ignore. He started taking calls in the hallway, his voice a hushed whisper. His stories about business dinners at restaurants that were closed and conferences that weren't on his company's calendar didn't add up. Each small, suspicious moment felt like a pebble in my shoe, uncomfortable but not quite enough to make me stop. I had met Ethan's parents several times. His mother, Susan, had cried with joy while we wedding dress shopped. And his father, James, had told me at our engagement party how happy he was that Ethan had found the one. I now wondered if they knew about their son's double life or if they were as deceived as I was. The changes began around March. Ethan started working later, claiming his firm was in the middle of a big merger. But one night, I ran into his colleague, Mike, at the grocery store. "Merger? We haven't had a major deal since January," he said. clearly confused. When I brought this up to Ethan, he accused me of spying, making me feel like I was the one who had broken trust. That night, unable to sleep, I opened his laptop for the first time. His password was still my birthday, which once would have felt romantic but now just seemed lazy. What I found was sickening emails to real estate agents about properties in Chicago, job searches in the Midwest, and dozens of messages to someone named Claire. I can't stand the guilt anymore. One email read, "Alyssa deserves better than this, but I can't help how I feel about you." The timestamp was 3 a.m. on a night he'd supposedly been working late at the office. That's when I decided to sell the ring. I remembered how proud he had been while giving it to me, telling a story about his grandmother wearing it for 50 years. The truth, revealed by an appraiser, was that the ring was less than 2 years old and purchased from an upscale consignment shop. The $15,000 I received for it felt like a safety net against the storm I knew was coming. Rachel's voice brought me back to the present. "Earth to Alyssa," she said, waving her hand in front of my face. "What are you going to do about the vendors?" "The venue deposit." Taking a deep breath, my mind was surprisingly clear. "First, I need to make a phone call," I said, pulling up the contact for Thomas Hayes, a private investigator a client had recommended. Then we're going to find out exactly who this someone better is. The investigation meeting Thomas Hayes was strange. His office wasn't a stereotypical dark, smoky room, but a modern, professional space. He listened intently as I explained everything, taking notes on a sleek tablet. "This joint account," he said, gesturing to the bank statements I brought. "These charges, here $4,800 at Peninsula Hotel. $3,200 at Tiffany's. None of these were for you." "Not a single one," I confirmed, my voice steadier than I expected. "And they all happened on days he said he was at work or meetings." Thomas nodded. "And you said he's planning something in Chicago." That's what his emails hinted at, but I got too nervous to keep snooping, I admitted. I pulled out my checkbook. "I have $15,000 from selling the ring." "Will that be enough?" "More than enough," Thomas assured me. "I'll start with his financial records and recent travel. Give me a week." That week felt endless. I buried myself in work, grateful that interior design required enough concentration to keep my mind busy. My clients had no idea that their upbeat designer was tracking her fiancé's betrayal between choosing paint colors and ordering furniture. Then Thomas called. "Can you meet today?" His office seemed smaller as he spread photos on his desk. "Ethan!" Entering high-end restaurants with a tall brunette. The same woman getting into his car. Receipts for flights to Chicago, hotel stays, jewelry. "Her name is Claire Winters," Thomas explained. "She's a pharmaceutical sales rep he met at a networking event last year. They've been seeing each other since March. The month everything had begun to change." "There's more," Thomas continued, pulling out financial records. "Mr. Bennett has been living well beyond his means. Credit card debt, personal loans, even some gambling debts. It seems he's been using your joint account to keep up appearances with both of you." My hands trembled as I saw the proof. Ethan had spent thousands on Claire while using my money to cover his tracks. The Chicago plan wasn't about love. He was running from debt collectors, planning a fresh start with Claire. "What are my options?" I asked. Thomas leaned back, That depends on what you want. We have enough to get him in serious trouble with his firm. They have strict financial disclosure rules. We could also make sure Claire sees these credit reports and collection notices. Or we could do something more strategic. We can make him face everything at once. His lies, his debts, his carefully built house of cards. But it would need to be handled carefully. I thought about Ethan's cruel email, his casual way of ending our relationship. A plan began to form in my mind. Tell me more about being strategic, I said. A strategic confrontation. The first step of my plan was a simple text to Ethan. I accept your decision. I just need you to come get your things. His reply was almost offensively quick. I'll send movers next week. No, I responded. There are personal documents and family photos. You need to come yourself. Friday at 6. While I waited, I stayed busy. Thomas had discovered that Claire's company had strict rules about dating clients. And guess who had just signed a major contract with her firm? I also learned that Ethan's boss, Richard, was a stickler for ethics, especially after a recent scandal at his firm. I invited Rachel over to help me get the apartment ready. We neatly arranged Ethan's things, including printouts of his secret emails with Claire, bank statements detailing his double life, and Thomas's surveillance photos. Everything was sitting innocently in labeled boxers. At 5:55 p.m. on Friday, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find not just Ethan, but Claire beside him. My heart pounded, but I kept my face blank. She was beautiful, I had to admit, tall and elegant, though she looked very uncomfortable. So I thought it would be better if we were honest about everything, Ethan said, his usual confidence faltering. Claire wanted to. Perfect, I interrupted. You're both here. Come in. They followed me into the living room, where Richard, Ethan's boss, was already sitting on my couch. The color drained from Ethan's face. Richard, what are you? I invited him. I said calmly, since we're being honest about everything, those boxers are yours, by the way. Feel free to look through them. Claire reached the first box before Ethan, pulling out the credit reports and collection notices. Her composure cracked as she read them. What is this? She demanded, turning to Ethan. You said you were financially secure. You said there's more, I interjected, gesturing to the other boxers, like the records of how he used my money to pay for your dates, and documentation of how he violated his firm's financial disclosure agreements. Oh, and Claire, your company might be interested in how you've been dating a client. Richard stood up, his face thunderous. Bennett? My office? 8 a.m. Monday? This isn't what it looks like, Ethan stammered. But Richard was already walking out. Claire grabbed her designer bag. You told me you were practically single, that she was just a convenient financial arrangement. You said. Tears streamed down her face, and she rushed out. Ethan stood alone, surrounded by the evidence of his lies. Elisa, please. I can explain everything. No need, I said. Your email was quite clear. You found someone better, remember. Though I'm not sure she thinks so anymore. Ethan ran his hands through his perfectly styled hair, pacing my living room. You had no right to do this, he sputtered. You went through my private information, hired someone to follow me, Just like you had no right to empty our joint account buying gifts for Claire, I replied, my voice steady, or use my credit card points for your romantic getaways. He grabbed one of the boxers, frantically looking through the documents. This could ruin me, he said, his voice rising. Richard is going to fire me. Claire's company will blacklist me. How could you be so vindictive? Vindictive. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You ended our 3-year relationship by email. You were planning to abandon me with wedding debt while you started a new life in Chicago. And I'm vindictive. His expression shifted, trying to find the charming smile that had once disarmed me. Look, I know I handled things badly, but we can fix this. I'll break it off with Claire. We can work something out with Richard. Just help me clean up this mess. The same way you helped me plan our wedding while apartment hunting with another woman. I pulled out my phone and showed him screenshots of his real estate searches, or the way you helped me pick out wedding invitations right after booking a romantic weekend with Claire. That's different, he protested weakly. I was confused. I made mistakes. No, I said firmly. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary? You orchestrated an entire double life. You lied to everyone, me. Claire, your firm, even your parents. The mention of his parents made him flinch. That's when I delivered the final blow. They know. By the way, I sent them copies of everything yesterday. Your mother called me this morning, crying. She wanted me to tell you she's devastated not just about Claire, but about the gambling debts and the lying. Ethan sank onto my couch, his expensive suit wrinkled, his face pale. For the first time, I saw him for what he was. Not the successful, confident man I'd fallen for, but someone who had built his entire existence on deceit. What do you want? He asked quietly. Money? An apology? Name it. I walked to the door and opened it. I want you to leave. Take your boxers. You'll need those documents for the meetings that are coming up your firm's HR department, Claire's company's legal team, the debt collectors. They'll all want to talk to you. Alyssa, please, goodbye. Ethan. I hope she was worth it. The aftermath and new beginnings after Ethan left, things happened quickly. Within a week, he lost his job. Richard had been looking for a reason to fire him, and my evidence provided several. Claire's company began an ethics investigation, forcing her to resign, and the Chicago real estate agents were not happy when they learned about Ethan's financial situation. I threw myself into my work, grateful for my understanding clients and the constant need for design decisions. But late at night, when my apartment was too quiet, doubts would surface. Had I gone too far? Was I as bad as him, plotting revenge instead of simply walking away? Then I would remember his email for cold sentences that dismissed our entire relationship, the endless lies, the money he spent on Claire while telling me we had to be careful with our budget for our future. A month after the confrontation, I met Thomas for coffee to close out his investigation. I thought you'd want to know, he said, sliding a folder across the table. Ethan's moved back in with his parents in New Hampshire. His father is trying to help with his debt, but it's worse than we thought. The gambling wasn't just casual. He has some serious markers out there. I nodded, not sure how I felt. And Claire took a job in California. From what I can tell, she wants nothing to do with him. Thomas paused. You know, in my line of work, I see a lot of people seeking revenge. Most of them let emotion guide them and end up hurting themselves. Too, but you simply exposed the truth. Everything that's happened to him is a direct result of his own actions. Sometimes the truth is the best revenge. I just made sure everyone saw it at once, I said, thinking about how easily his lies had flowed. Thomas smiled. Well, your retainer still has some money left. Want me to keep tabs on him? I considered it, then shook my head. No! I'm done. He can figure out his own life now. As I walked home, my phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Lunch tomorrow, that new place on Newbury Street. My treat. I smiled, remembering how she had been there for me through everything. That's when I realized the weight I'd been carrying was gone. Ethan's betrayal had broken my heart, but it hadn't broken me. Instead, it had shown me how strong I truly was. The truth was my weapon, and I had used it perfectly. Ethan had thought he could simply hit send and walk away without consequence. Instead, his carefully constructed life had crumbled, forcing him to face the fallout of every lie he had told. The following months brought unexpected changes, with Etho no longer a drain on my finances. My savings grew quickly. I started taking on more high-end design projects from clients who valued my eye for detail and trusted my judgment. My portfolio expanded, and so did my confidence. One morning, I ran into Richard, Ethan's former boss, at my favorite coffee shop. Alyssa, he said warmly, how are you holding up? I stirred my latte. Actually, I'm doing really well. Better than I expected. He nodded, then hesitated. Listen, I should have told you this sooner. We'd been investigating Ethan's accounts for months. There were irregularities we couldn't ignore, but we had no idea about the personal Sadu, Claire, the gambling. You did us a favor bringing it all out at once. I just needed the truth to come out, I replied. Everything else was just a result of his actions. Well, speaking of consequences, Richard continued, we're redesigning our office space. All 40,000 square feet. Would you be interested in submitting a proposal? Your reputation is excellent, and after everything, well, let's just say I trust your attention to detail. That project became my biggest, yet a complete corporate office overhaul that put my firm on the map. The irony was not lost on me. Ethan's downfall led to my greatest professional success. My parents, who were heartbroken about the canceled wedding, now proudly told friends about their daughter, the successful businesswoman. My mom even admitted she'd never fully trusted Ethan. Something about him was too polished, she said, like he was trying too hard to be perfect. Rachel eventually convinced me to start dating again. Not everyone is hiding a secret life, she insisted. And now you know what? Red flags to watch for. She was right. I found myself noticing things I might have overlooked before. Subtle manipulations, how men talked about their exes. Each observation felt like a small victory. Proof that I had learned from the experience instead of being broken by it. The last of my ties to Ethan slowly disappeared. His mother called one final time, apologizing again and returning a family necklace I had left at their house. I donated all the wedding-related items. We had collected no reason to keep reminders of a bullet dodged. The save the dates, the venue deposit, the carefully chosen color swatches of it was gone, making room for new possibilities. Sometimes, late at night, I would think about Claire. Had she been as deceived as I was? Did she lie awake, wondering which parts of her relationship with Ethan were real? I hoped she had also found her way to a better life, free from his web of deceit. The engagement ring money, my unexpected escape fund, became the seed money for expanding my business. I hired 2 junior designers and moved into a proper office space. Every time I signed a new client or approved a design, I thought about Ethan's dismissive email. He thought he was ending my story, but he was really just freeing me to write a better one. Almost a year after that email, I received an unexpected message from Claire. She was back in Boston briefly and wanted to meet. I agreed, more out of curiosity than anything else, and we met at a quiet cafe. She looked different from that day in my apartment, less polished, more authentic. She had cut her long hair and was wearing simple business casual clothes instead of designer outfits. We sat in awkward silence until she finally spoke. "I've been wanting to thank you," she said, "not just for exposing Ethan, but for doing it the way you did, all at once, with everyone there. It was humiliating then, but it was like ripping off a bandage. Painful, but quick." I nodded, knowing exactly what she meant. "How are you doing now?" "Better, much better. The job in California was a fresh start. I'm dating someone new, an architect. He's real, no hidden life, no secret debts, just an honest man who actually cares." She paused. "I heard through mutual friends that Ethan tried to contact you." "He did," I confirmed, remembering the desperate voicemails and emails that had started arriving about 6 months after our confrontation. "I never responded." "Me neither," Claire said, "though he tried hard enough. Sent flowers to my office in San Francisco, called my parents, even tried to reach me on LinkedIn." She shook her head. "It's like he still doesn't get it. He's not sorry for what he did, just that he got caught." We talked for nearly 2 hours, filling in the gaps in each other's stories. Her version of Ethan was completely different from mine. He had played the role of a successful single man, hinting at marriage with her, all while planning a wedding. With me, "You know what the strangest part is?" Claire said as we prepared to leave. "In all the time we dated, he never once let me see his place. Always had an excuse. Renovations, bad timing, a nosy roommate. Now I know why." I laughed, despite myself. He told me he was renovating his office for 6 months straight. I guess juggling lies gets complicated. Before we parted, Claire handed me an envelope. "These were in my things. I thought you might want to decide what to do with them." Inside were photos of Ethan and me from happier times, vacations, moments I didn't even realize were being photographed. I dropped the envelope in the first trash can I saw. Those memories, like Ethan himself, no longer held any power over me. My life had moved in a different direction, one with more honesty, success, and genuine relationships than I had when I was planning a future with him. That evening, I had dinner with Rachel and told her about meeting Claire. "You both dodged a bullet," she said, raising her glass. "Here's to seeing through the lies and coming out stronger." I clinked my glass against hers, thinking about how far I'd come. Here's to knowing your own worth, I added, and never settling for less. Looking back now, I can barely recognize the woman who received that cold email. She was someone who believed love meant accepting lies and who measured her worth through someone else's eyes. The journey from that morning to today wasn't easy, but it changed me in ways I never expected. My design firm has thrived beyond my wildest dreams. The project for Richard's company led to other corporate clients, and I've had to hire 3 more designers to keep up. Last month, a prestigious design magazine featured our work on its cover, a restoration project that perfectly captured my philosophy of blending elegance with authenticity. The money from selling Ethan's ring was the best investment I ever made, not just financially, but emotionally. It taught me to trust my instincts and to act decisively when something feels wrong. That lesson has served me well in both business and in life. Rachel often jokes that I should thank Ethan for setting me free, but I refuse to give him that credit. My success came from choosing myself and refusing to let his betrayal define me. Instead of drowning in hurt and anger, I used those emotions to build something meaningful. Sometimes new clients ask about the faint ring-shaped tan line still visible on my finger. I used to feel embarrassed, but now I tell them the truth. It's a reminder of when I chose truth over comfortable lies, strength over safety, and self-respect over settling. That fading mark represents not what I lost, but what I gained. Independence, my confidence, and my belief in myself. Last week, I was meeting a new client at the same restaurant where Ethan first proposed. As I waited, I saw my reflection in the window, confident, successful, at peace. The hostess recognized me and mentioned that Ethan had been in recently, looking worse for wear, trying to impress a date with stories about his upcoming business ventures. Some things never change. But I have the woman who once desperately tried to understand his lies now runs a thriving business built on transparency and trust. The engagement ring money, which was meant to bind me to him, instead set me free. Sometimes the universe has a sense of humor. Rachel tells me I should write a book about my experience, but I don't think it's necessary. Instead, I share my story with other women who come to me feeling trapped or betrayed. I tell them what I wish someone had told me. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can lead to the best version of yourself. I still believe in love, but now I know it should never require you to compromise your integrity or ignore your instincts. Real love builds you up. It doesn't tear you down. It's based on truth, not carefully constructed lies. The tears and heartbreak of that Tuesday morning feel like another lifetime now. By choosing to fight back with the truth instead of sinking to Ethan's level of deception, I found my own strength. And that, more than any revenge, has been the sweetest victory of all.